Imagine waking up one morning. You open your eyes, you look outside, and absolutely everything looks completely normal. The trees are right where they should be, the roads are untouched, the houses are all still standing. But there's just one huge, terrifying thing missing. People. No one is anywhere. You are literally the last human being on Earth.
So, could you actually survive in a world like this? Okay, let's dive into this. Our story today begins with a guy named William. Now, William is a biologist, and he's been living deep out in a forest, miles away from any town, just doing his field research. But one morning, things go horribly wrong. A poisonous snake bites him. He desperately tries to cut his own hand to remove the venom, but it's no use, and within moments he completely loses consciousness. He ends up so weak that when a rescue helicopter actually flies over his camp, he literally can't even call out for help.
Miraculously, after a few days, William actually recovers. But he's not entirely sure if the venom is fully out of his system, right? So he decides he needs to hike into the city hospital to get checked out. But when he finally gets to the city, he is absolutely shocked. These roads that were always jam-packed with traffic, they're completely empty. All he sees are abandoned cars and a few scattered dead bodies. Finally, he spots a signboard that explains everything. A terrible global pandemic had forced the entire city into a total lockdown.
As you can imagine, William's heart just starts racing. He practically sprints to his parents' house, but they're gone. He completely breaks down for a few days, which is totally understandable, but he doesn't give up hope. He's absolutely convinced there just has to be someone else alive out there somewhere. Fueled by that hope, he hits the road and heads straight for Las Vegas, figuring it's one of the most crowded cities in America. But when he gets there, Las Vegas is exactly the same. Completely silent, like a ghost town.
At this point, feeling utterly hopeless, he crashes in the biggest, fanciest hotel in the city. He pops open a ridiculously expensive bottle of wine because, hey, everything is free now. And right then, out of nowhere, he spots two other survivors. Their names are Milton and Anne. Now, William is thrilled, thinking everything's going to be okay now. But as they start talking, he realizes something chilling. These two are completely broken. They literally have no desire to live anymore. Milton even pulls out a pistol and tells William they're just waiting for the right time. This terrifies William. He wants to live, so he bolts out of the hotel. And as he's running away, he hears two gunshots ring out behind him. Milton and Anne are gone, and William is completely alone again.
Driving out of the city like a total madman, he spots something in the middle of the road. It's a dog. He slams on the brakes. Looking at this poor, stray dog, William feels this massive wave of pity, and he decides to name him Lucky. And honestly, this is a real game changer for him. Just having Lucky as a companion gives William the spark he needs to start dreaming about a future again. He starts binge-reading survival books and really preparing himself for the long haul.
And just like that, a whole year passes. Every single day, William and Lucky are out there scouring the area for other people, and they find absolutely no one.
But then, one day, Lucky just starts barking like crazy. William looks up and he sees smoke rising from a chimney in the distance. He creeps closer to the house and he sees her. A girl. Her name is Anna. For the very first time since the world ended, he has actually found another living human being. As you might expect, these two lonely people grow close incredibly fast. They move in together, they start cleaning up the house, making supply runs to abandoned stores, and eventually they fall deeply in love. They decide they're going to build a new family together. Sure enough, after a while, Anna gets pregnant. Now, William is overjoyed, but he's also terrified. You gotta wonder, is it even right to bring a kid into a totally destroyed world? What if there's a complication during delivery? How is he gonna handle it all by himself? So he goes into full prep mode. He raids the local library for every book on childbirth he can find. He engineers a whole solar panel system for electricity. And he even gets a small farm up and running.
But just as things are looking up, a massive new problem hits. Rats. Literal swarms of rats start decimating their crops. William tries everything, but he just can't stop them. Finally, he has this absolute light bulb moment. He drives into the city, rounds up as many stray cats as he can possibly find, and just releases them on the farm. It works perfectly. Within days, the cats totally wipe out the rat problem. And the timing couldn't be better, because shortly after, Anna safely gives birth to a beautiful baby girl. They name her Tara.
After Tara is born, William actually starts writing their home address on signs and pinning them up all over the city ruins, hoping to guide any other lost survivors to them. And just like that, 6 more years fly by. By this time, William and Anna have 3 kids.
And the signs actually start working. One day, they find a little girl named Evie trembling in the ruins. She'd been abused by her father after the collapse, but William's family takes her in, and she finally finds real love and safety. Slowly, more people start trickling in, including an actual doctor. This little family is rapidly turning into a real community. William takes on the role of a teacher, telling the kids all about the old world and teaching them to read and write. But it isn't all perfect. Heartbreak hits when Lucky, the faithful dog who saved William from his darkest isolation, passes away of old age. They bury him near the house, honoring him as their true founding member. And before they can even process that grief, a literal tiger, likely escaped from a zoo, attacks their compound. William tries to fight it off alone and gets brutally mauled. The doctor barely manages to save his life, but it's Anna who ultimately steps up and kills the tiger with a handmade spear.
Fast forward another 17 years. The community is really stabilized and grown. But out of nowhere, they get hit with an existential crisis that all their old-world textbooks and salvage tech just can't fix. A massive, brutal drought bakes the region. The rivers completely dry up, and suddenly, this whole expanding community is on the brink of dying from thirst.
Right when things are at their absolute most desperate, a convoy rolls into town, led by a guy named Charlie. Now, Charlie has exactly what they need: a heavy-duty drilling rig that can tap into deep underground aquifers. But the asking price? It is insane. He wants almost all of their hoarded fuel reserves. But William doesn't really have a choice, so he agrees to the trade to save his people.
The drill works. They hit water, and it seems like they're saved. But that very same night, things take a very dark turn. Charlie, who had casually bragged earlier about murdering people just to survive, brutally assaults Evie. So, what does this all mean for William? He is suddenly forced into an agonizing ethical dilemma. In a completely shattered world where human life is incredibly rare, is it ever justified to execute someone? William realizes pretty quickly that if he lets Charlie stay, that toxic cruelty is going to rot their safe haven from the inside out.
So they make the hardest call imaginable. The family executes Charlie. It completely shatters William's conscience, but the fallout is totally unexpected. Charlie's crew? They aren't even mad. It turns out they were living in absolute terror of the guy, and they are incredibly relieved. They immediately ask to join William's community. There's only one holdout, a fiercely loyal guy named Cyrus. William refuses to let Cyrus poison their home, so he exiles him straight into the wasteland.
Another 20 years roll by. William is an old man now. His kids are all grown up, and honestly, they're incredibly ambitious. They've actually started piecing together a working airplane. Their grand dream is to fly across continents, find other pockets of humanity, and essentially force the high-tech modern world back into existence. But all that arrogance? It collapses in the most tragic way possible. Almost out of nowhere, the old pandemic virus, which had been dormant for decades, sweeps through the camp again. And as if that wasn't enough, the exiled Cyrus suddenly sneaks back into the settlement to get his revenge and murders one of their people, Rife. It's just total chaos. Now the community doctor works a miracle and manages to synthesize an antidote that saves almost everyone. But it's just a little too late for William's youngest son, Jay. Losing his boy completely and utterly breaks William.
William is drowning in total despair, ready to give up. But Anna, just as strong as she was the day she fought off that tiger, stands right by his side. She looks him in the eye and tells him, "We must accept death and keep living." She reminds him that they owe it to everyone still breathing to keep pushing forward. Anchored by her words, William climbs to the absolute highest hill in the ruined city just to watch the sunrise. And standing up there, he has this massive, profound epiphany. Looking out over the decaying skyscrapers, it finally clicks for him. And this brilliantly illustrates the core message here. Their ultimate mistake was trying to resurrect the ghost of the old world. They were obsessed with conquering the sky, fighting against nature, and rebuilding the exact same fragile systems that caused the collapse in the first place. He heads back down to the community and declares a total shift in their philosophy. They have to step forward into a new world. They need to adapt to nature, not try to dominate it.
So, they scrap the airplane project completely. No more trying to conquer the skies. Instead, they focus entirely on connection, building radio towers to reach out to others. They start actively healing the environment by cleaning up the toxic ruins of the old cities. And most importantly, they completely overhaul how they educate their kids. They stop glorifying technological conquest and start teaching what really keeps a species alive: humanity, radical empathy, and deep cooperation.
50 more years pass, and we finally see William, now a very, very old man, just walking quietly hand in hand with his grandson. He's no longer that terrified, lonely guy hiding from rats in a ruined house. He is walking through a vibrant, lush, incredibly peaceful new civilization that his descendants built, by actually learning from the mistakes of the past. William kneels down, looks his grandson in the eyes, and gives him one last piece of advice. He says, "This new world is now in your hands. It is your responsibility to carry it forward." It's just this incredibly powerful culmination of his entire life, going from the absolute last, desperate biologist of a dead world to becoming the founding father of a sustainable, brand new humanity. Which brings us to the end of today's Explainer, and I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought. You know, it's so easy for us to look around at our smartphones, our giant cities, and our airplanes, and think of them as the ultimate peak of human achievement. But if all of that was just wiped away in a single day, what would you actually prioritize? Would you spend the rest of your life desperately trying to pour concrete and build machines to conquer nature all over again? Or would you, like William, finally learn how to just live alongside it? Definitely something to think about.
Imagine you wake up, open your eyes, and look outside. Everything looks totally normal, right? The trees are there, the roads are paved, the houses are exactly where they should be. But one massive thing is missing: the people. Literally, no one is around. You are the last human being on Earth. Welcome to today's Explainer. We aren't just looking at some standard survival scenario today. We're diving deep into the absolute breaking points of human morality and endurance. We're going to break down the incredible journey of William, a biologist who survives a devastating global pandemic, finds love, builds this fragile little community, and then has to watch as it all threatens to completely collapse.
So it begs the question, in a dead world, how far would you go to protect your family? You know, it's pretty easy to be a good person when the grocery stores are fully stocked and the police are just a quick phone call away. But what happens when the laws of society just evaporate completely? Today, we're exploring the really severe moral compromises demanded by a brutal new Earth and the impossible choices one man has to make when he is pushed to his absolute limit.
Okay, let's set the stage real quick and map out this timeline. William survives the initial horror of the pandemic in year 1. He pushes through this absolutely crushing isolation, eventually finds his wife, Anna. They have kids, adopt some survivors, build a farm. They painstakingly create a safe haven. 17 years go by like this. They survive tiger attacks, profound grief, you name it. But then, nature throws a massive curveball. The rain just stops. A brutal drought hits and the rivers completely dry up. William's thriving community is suddenly staring down death by dehydration. And right at that terrifying peak, in year 17, strangers show up. Now, let's dive into this trade-off. 2 cars pull up out of the dust, and this guy named Charlie steps out. He's got this massive drilling machine that can hit deep underground aquifers, which could absolutely save William's family. But of course, there's a cost. He wants a huge amount of their precious fuel reserves in exchange. And here's the thing. Fuel gives power, and giving power to an unknown group in this world is incredibly dangerous. But really, what choice does William have? Desperate for water, he agrees to the deal.
But William quickly realizes he might have just made a deal with the devil. A few days into the digging, the mask totally slips. Charlie looks right at William and casually drops this line: "I have killed many people to survive." Just let that sink in for a moment. He says it like he's talking about the weather. William's blood just runs cold. He immediately warns his family to stay far, far away from this guy. The tension on the farm becomes incredibly thick.
And then we get this unbelievable emotional whiplash. On the 4th day, victory. The drill actually hits water. There's this immense celebration. Everyone is so relieved. Until that very same night. The joy is instantly shattered when William discovers that Charlie has violently assaulted Evie, a young woman in their group who had already survived horrific abuse from her own father as a child. The celebration turns into an absolute nightmare. William's blood is literally boiling. He immediately gathers his family in secret.
Which brings us to this impossible situation. I mean, ask yourself, is it right to kill another human being? In the old world, a guy like Charlie would just be locked away, right? But here, there are no prisons. There are no courts or judges. In a world with barely any humans left at all, taking a human life feels like a crime against the species itself. But they're trapped. What's the alternative? William lays out the brutal math of survival for his family. If someone is poisonous, as violently unpredictable as Charlie is allowed to live and stay with them, he's going to eventually destroy their entire family from the inside out. They can't contain him, and they definitely can't safely exile him, knowing he might just come back later with weapons. To protect the innocent people under his roof, they have to do something unfathomably hard.
So they make the call. Together, the family kills Charlie. Now, having taken a human life for the very first time, William is completely shattered inside. But the immediate fallout is actually super surprising. The next morning, Charlie's men find out what happened, and instead of plotting some crazy revenge, they're relieved. They actually reveal that Charlie tortured them too, and they all lived in terror of him. So, one by one, they defect and join William's family. The only exception is Cyrus, Charlie's closest buddy. Cyrus threatens to kill everyone, but when the rest of the group turns on him, he panics. He begs for forgiveness, terrified of being alone in the wasteland. But William makes the harsh call and sends him away.
Okay, let's jump forward and see how this builds over time. 2 whole decades pass. We go from year 17 to year 37. William's kids are all grown up now. And you know what they're doing? They're trying to build an airplane. They're dreaming of the sky, dreaming of making the world modern again. They want the old world back, with all its technology and progress. But just as they're reaching for the sky, the ground completely crumbles beneath them. Out of nowhere, the old pandemic virus returns, infecting a bunch of the family. William's youngest son, Jay, falls critically ill. And if that wasn't overwhelming enough, Heather, a family member who had left years ago with her boyfriend, comes running back in tears with horrific news. Cyrus, the guy William banished 20 years ago, came back for revenge and murdered her boyfriend Rife.
It is a total catastrophe. You've got violence on one side, a deadly disease on the other. Their community doctor works frantically and, incredibly, manages to create an antidote for the virus. Almost everyone recovers, but it's just too late. Jay, William's youngest son, dies. And this breaks William completely. After everything he survived, the loneliness, the drought, the murders, losing his child just shatters his spirit.
In his absolute darkest, most hopeless moment, his wife, Anna, stands firmly by his side. She grounds him with these profound words: "We must accept death and keep living, for the sake of those who are still alive." Her words somehow pull William back from the edge. He realizes he desperately needs a moment of clarity. So he leaves the compound, climbs the absolute highest hill in the abandoned city, and just watches the sunrise over this silent, broken world. And this brilliantly illustrates William's profound epiphany on that hill. He realizes their biggest mistake was trying to resurrect a ghost. For 37 years, they were basically fighting against nature, obsessed with rebuilding the old, mechanized world, building airplanes, chasing the past. He finally gets that the future isn't about dominance over the earth, it's about harmony. They need to transition to living with nature to build a truly new world. So he comes down from that hill and literally changes everything. They completely abandon the airplane project. Instead, they start focusing on connection and healing. They build radio stations to find other survivors. They systematically start cleaning up the toxic, abandoned cities. And most importantly, they completely overhaul what they teach the next generation. They stop prioritizing tech and engineering, and instead they teach humanity, empathy, and cooperation. Which leads us right to the ultimate payoff. Let's fast forward one final time. 50 more years pass. It's now year 87. The pacing of their lives has completely transformed. We find an incredibly old William walking hand in hand with his grandson. And all around them isn't the rusted ruin of the past. It's a vibrant, thriving, peaceful new civilization built by their descendants.
William looks down at his grandson and passes the torch with these words: "This new world is now in your hands. It is your responsibility to carry it forward." It's such a beautifully poignant close to a lifelong struggle. I mean, what began as one terrified biologist's desperate fight just to breathe for another day has blossomed into the birth of a much more grounded, more human civilization.
But here is the big takeaway I really want you to think about as we wrap up today's explainer. Do we have to wait for the end of the world to learn how to live in it? Do we really need a total global collapse to realize that fighting against nature and prioritizing machines over humanity is just a losing battle? It's a pretty heavy question, but an absolutely crucial one for the world we live in right now. Thank you so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.